Greetings, friend, and welcome to the Between the Covers podcast, where we are working every day to remove the self-limiting beliefs that are preventing us from becoming the heroes of our own stories. I am Marcus Spar. Before we dive into our hero study for this month, I do want to remind you that if you have any suggestions for future hero studies of individuals that can be interviewed, or we can do some deep dives into what makes them heroic, then go to my podcast page on my website where you can submit any kind of questions or ideas for heroes that we can use in the future. It honestly surprises me that it's taken this long for me to actually talk about this hero. The hero for this month is Himura Kenshin. And he is he is the main protagonist in the manga and anime Rurouni Kenshin. He is a fictional character who plays a large part in the end of the Edo period during the Meiji Revolution, and he is one of the most skilled assassins that the imperialist army had. Kenshin's mastery and skill in the Batojutsu of the Hiten Mitsurugi Ryu style of swordsmanship was instrumental in bringing down the Shinsengumi and helping to end the Edo period and bring about the new Meiji government during the Meiji Revolution that removed the shogunate in favor of having an imperial form of government again. Now, for those individuals who are not familiar with anime or the Japanese language, my apologies for how heavy that was in the beginning. I will do what I can to keep this easy to follow. What I can say is this character of Kenshin is one of my favorite characters, and a lot of that comes down to his redemption. I am huge in characters who have a big redemption arc, and a big part of Kenshin in his story is he becomes an assassin at the age of 14 in order to help this change in government. And he was notorious for being a ruthless killer. And there wasn't anyone who was able to compete with him. Because of this, one of the things that ends up happening is as soon as the Meiji Revolution is finished, Kenshin disappears. And he disappears and wanders for 10 years. And what he ends up doing is he gives up his traditional katana and he takes up this weapon that in the manga is called a sakabato, and it's essentially a reverse-edged sword or a reverse-bladed sword. I actually have one on the wall here. I didn't think about getting it down in time to actually show people if you're watching the video version of this. But this sword is one that is sharpened on the backside of the blade. Doesn't really make a whole lot of sense, but I love how Kenshin uses this weapon and the symbolism that it contains. The thing with Kenshin's fighting style is it's a fighting style that focuses on killing an enemy quickly, based on being able to sheath and unsheath your sword very quickly and being able to respond quickly to unexpected attacks. This was something that, again, Kenshin thrived with. And because of this, he also took a great many lives. And that kind of turned into some demons that he had to wrestle with. Or I guess in Japan, it's probably more like Oni that he had to wrestle with. A lot of shadows, a lot of pain about his actions. So one of the things that he does is he vows to no longer take another person's life ever again. And that is symbolized in the sakabato that he carries. If he were to use this weapon as he would a typical sword, something that would end in a killing blow would instead turn into a debilitating blow. The very first antagonist that he encounters is this big man who is pretending to be him and flouting this reputation and fear-mongering and everything. And when Kenshin confronts him about it, he would have killed this man, but instead he shatters his hand and makes it so he can no longer hold a weapon anymore. He is on a quest, essentially, to redeem himself for all of the pain that he caused during the Meiji Revolution. And instead of taking life, he wants to uphold peace. And one of the things that is so incredible, as I have this entire manga, it's the only one that I have the entire collection of on my bookshelf. You see individuals that want to see him return to his killer nature from the war. They want to test their strength and their prowess against this incredible swordsman, and they want to see him suffer the way that they have suffered. There are 3 different arcs that take place in this story, and each one has its own chief antagonist, and with every new arc they get more powerful, they get worse, they become harder, they become more ruthless. And every single one is trying to get Kenshin to step away from his vow of, I guess, the sanctity of life, in order for him to return to his killer mindset, his killer past, the assassin self, I guess. They really just want him to return to being a Hitokiri Batosai. And you see him struggle and wrestle with this a lot. He is a Ronin. He is a wandering samurai, so to speak. And in the manga, he's known as a Rurouni, but that was just, from what I've understood in my research, that was just made up for the purpose of the manga. But he is a masterless samurai. He doesn't have anyone that he has allegiance to. And he uses this freedom in an attempt to prevent harm being done to others and to take down those who are using their power and their authority to harm or coerce or just generally cause problems in society. However, as these villains continue to show up and they are stronger, they are more powerful, they're greater in number than they were before, one of the things that ends up happening is he has to wrestle with the notion that his abilities as a Ronin is not enough at times to take on these threats. If he were to give in to this darker nature within him, he would become faster, he would become more powerful, he would become deadlier. And that's something that he knows, it's something he understands, and it's something that he's afraid of. He's afraid of it because he fears that he will renounce his vow and take another life again. And you see him wrestle with this a lot in his story. He has to give in to this darkness of his, not necessarily his nature, of his training, of his past, in order to overcome some of these threats. He has to get right on the verge without crossing over that line. He has to utilize the skill, the strength, and the agility that comes from being able to take someone's life without actually following through with it. And you see him struggle against this a lot, especially when there are so many people that are antagonizing him, wanting him to go back to these old ways. Someone like me who has experience of being a less than wholesome individual, I guess, someone who had a reputation for a long time as being the evil twin, having someone be able to wrestle with and reconcile this kind of past is someone who really speaks volumes to me. It helps me to know that I can change, that I can improve, that I can overcome my past in order to become a better person. One of the other things that he shows is in the beginning, especially since he spent 10 years wandering on his own, in the beginning of his story, which takes place when at the end of his 10-year wandering period, he shows up in Tokyo and is joining and staying with a dojo. He is reluctant to open up to others. He wants to keep his past a mystery. He wants to kind of handle things on his own or let others handle their problems, and when things get to be too much, then he steps in. But he doesn't often rely on other people. However, through some interesting duels, through some rivalries with certain individuals, he ends up developing a core group of friends, those being some people that he lives with, who he is learning a new sword style from, those being, one of them is even a street urchin who ends up having some kind of noble background and really wants to become as strong and capable as Kenshin. And there's another one who was a complete rival. He was a mercenary for hire, meant to take down Kenshin, and didn't happen. And he is like, you know what? There's something about this guy. I'm just going to kind of follow him around. As the story moves forward, you see him begin to open up more to these individuals and recognize that he can't do everything on his own. He does have to rely on others, and there are others who really want to help him. For someone like me, who can still very much fall into the lone wolf mentality, it's a good reminder that I can't do everything on my own. I need a good source of community and support around me. I'm not always going to be able to handle things perfectly in the way that I honestly wish I could 100% of the time every single day. I have to rely on others from time to time. And that's kind of a hard pill for me to swallow, if I'm truly being honest. It's hard for me to admit that I need help. It's hard for me to ask for help. It's hard for me to sometimes even acknowledge what my needs are. And seeing this character who goes from the all-powerful sword master no one can take down to things escalating very quickly over time, and his opponents become stronger, their numbers become greater, he has to start relying on other people. He still contributes, but he starts to realize these people want to help, they're here to help, I can trust them to do that. And I will do everything that I can to protect them and keep them safe. It's quite an arc for this character. From someone who has, I guess, if I remember right, it's more of like humble beginnings as an orphan and actually showing like incredible value for life. In fact, there's a series of movies, anime movies, called Samurai X that kind of tell this prequel to this main story that shows him as the Hitokiri Batosai, that shows him as the killer. Before he steps into that, he is a part of a caravan, and these bandits pretty much kill everyone except for him. They were about to, until a sword master takes out these bandits, and the sword master just leaves him. He's like, sorry, you're on your own, kid. And when he comes by later, he sees that Kenshin has taken the time to bury everyone that died in that encounter, including the bandits. He showed some incredible honor for the lives of these individuals, even those who did not treat him or others that well. And then you see that change as he becomes a hot-headed teenager who uses the abilities of this rescuer. The person who rescued him from the bandits becomes his master and teaches him Hiten Mitsurugi Ryu, and they have a very heated argument because to Kenshin, with the Meiji Revolution, they could use their abilities to really make one side win. And his master is like, that's not what this is meant to be used for. Kenshin, as the hot-headed teenager, runs off. He joins one of the sides. He joins the imperialist side. And you see him become an individual who doesn't value human life. And then there is this arc where he's really trying to redeem that nature within him. Someone who sees all life as being valuable, even those who misuse their power. They all have something inherently good about them. And he wants to make sure that he never takes another life again. And that his tool of destruction is switched over to one that is aimed to protect. And even if it's used, it would never take a life again. Himura Kenshin is one of my favorite heroes. I have been enamored with this character since I was a teenager, and that hasn't changed. My partner Libby surprised me for one of my, I think it was for Christmas. I could be mistaken and it was a birthday, but I want to say it was a Christmas. What made me think about having this month be a hero study of Himura Kenshin is I was interviewed on my friend Mike Chapman's podcast, Healing for Male Survivors. And one of the things that he does is he has 4 questions that he asks each of his guests. And one of the questions is, what's one of your favorite holiday memories? And I shared how I was given a gift by my partner Libby. And it was something that surprised me. I never, ever expected it. I remember seeing some presents. Some of them were the typical, that's the size of a book, that's clearly holding an article of clothing, that's the size of a video game. And there was this one that was a very long and slender present, and I was like, I have no clue what this is. And I think Libby told me to save that one for last because that was a big surprise. And when I open it, I literally had one of those moments where I couldn't speak. And that's because I've been talking so much about Rurouni Kenshin. I hadn't quite got all of the manga by this point, but I was just eating up this story, and I just kept talking about it, that Libby found a Sakabato and purchased it for me. That was so impactful, and it meant so much to me. I do have a pretty decent wall with swords, and there's one of them on there. I mean, I don't have any of them that are battle ready or anything like that. Yeah, they will still hurt if you swing hard enough or you get poked by one of them. But now, or I guess back then, and I still have now, a weapon that symbolizes this commitment to defend and preserve life rather than end it. And I love that. I love that for myself. And I loved reading and watching Kenshin struggle with this dark nature of his past in an effort to become someone better, in order to uphold this vow of not taking a life. And that's one of the reasons, well, not one, there's been many examples in here of why I think Himura Kenshin is a phenomenal hero. And again, I'm surprised it took me this long considering how much I love the guy, how much I love his story. He embodies so much of a protector, of someone who has taken something that has caused some pain and hurt in his past and turning that around for something that is helpful, something that is protecting others. With a lot of the things of my past, with the spiritual abuse, with the bullying, with the suicidal ideation and depression that I've had in my past, I want to be able to take those experiences and I want to turn them into methods of protecting others and helping others to be able to fend for themselves, to find a good solid community of people, to help these individuals that I work with begin to take these terrible dynamics of their story and make them work for them instead of against them. Those are all things that I find embodied in the hero of Himura Kenshin. I hope that you enjoyed this look at one of my favorite heroes, and we will dive into this again next month. And until next time, live strong for today.